Hello, okay, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be building a custom bookmark manager using a mixture of Tailwind, React, and the Chrome extension Rollup plugin. So let's take a quick look at what we're actually going to be building here. So you can see here, I have my extension disabled. So if we go ahead and enable it now, you can see that we have this pop-up area up here, which if we click onto it has two actions. So we can either bookmark this current page, which, I mean, why not? Let's do that. And then you can see we can open bookmarks. So if we click onto open bookmarks, it's going to open our bookmark manager. Now this is the main thing that we're going to be creating. So we've got a search, which works very similar to the default. So if we actually disable this and look at the default, you can see we just have a list of bookmarks down the side. So you click into this to get into a folder and you can view the different bookmarks. And then there's a search over here as well. So you can just search for different things here. But if we go back and enable and then reload, you can see this. So we can click into our different folders. You can see the icon changes when you click onto it. You can create a new folder. You can toggle between these, and then here are our bookmarks. So if we click onto that, that will just open up in a new page. And then we can search over here as well. So if we actually use a normal site and bookmark here and open, you can see we're grabbing the Favicon as well. I'll show in the code when we go through it of how you can do that. And there we go, you can open up. So that's what we're going to be building. Now let's jump ahead into the code and actually start creating this. Okay, so in the description you'll find links to both the completed project and this starter files. Now I've put these starter files together just to give you a starting point. Now what this basically has is all of the files that we'll be needing. So ignore everything down here. That's basically the configuration files and the setup and the package information. But what we're mainly going to be looking at is the manifest just here, and then everything in the pages. That's what we're going to be going through. But first thing you need to do is once you get this, we're going to run npm install and make sure that we've got everything we need to run the extensions. So we're going to go through our package.json here and make sure we've got everything set up that we need. Now, one thing that we have in here as well is I've customized these scripts here so that when we run npm start, we'll be able to run Tailwind and Rollup together, so we can actually use this effectively. So that should be installed now. So if we run npm start, you can see we have this no classes were detected. But let's just wait for that to be completed, and we can see over here we've got this dist folder created that has our built extension that we can actually use. So if we go into CSS and styling, we can find everything just here. So that is great. So let's just test this by going into one of our pages, just to make sure the setup is correct. We're going to go in here and just add a class name. And save. And then all we want to do is just go back into our styling file and check that we have this added. That'll be why. So there we go. So that is updating. So if we go into here now, scroll to the bottom, we can see there's our styling. So that's all connected up. So all you basically need to run is npm install. So now that we have our files created, let's close this out. And let's just grab this generated extension and just open it up so we can see what we're beginning with. So we're just going to load it unpacked. Okay, so we've selected our extension. We can see here is the extension just here. Now what this will do is it will open a pop-up here. So if we just pin this, you can see that it's just an empty page that says pop-up with that green text that we just created. And then if we go to our bookmark manager, we can see it just says bookmark override page. Now, if you remember what we saw a minute ago, what we're going to be creating, we need to add in a few elements and classes here. But let's go over first to the pop-up and we'll complete that first. Okay, so for the pop-up, what we want to do first is look at our manifest, and we can see that we basically have two different files that we're working with. So we have two permissions, we have bookmarks and tabs, and then we have our pop-up just here, and then our page override. So you can only use one page override per extension. So for example, you can either have a new tab that you override or a bookmark. I couldn't go in and add a new tab override in this same extension because you can only use one. So if I was to try and save that, you can even see here that the rollup extension is going to give us a warning. But yeah, the main thing there is you can only use one override per extension. So these are the two areas we're going to be looking at. We're going to start with the pop-up as we mentioned. So this is manifest version 3. So we have action rather than browser action, and then everything else is the same. So we're going to go into our pop-up folder over here. So if I just scroll down, we can see we have it organized a little bit in here. So we just have our sources folder, then pages. So if we go into pages, we can see we have bookmarks and pop-up. Both of these are used in React in here. So you can see it follows a straightforward process. We have that index HTML here. We're importing our styling. So this is the built Tailwind style sheet. And then we just have our root element, and then we import this file just here, which in turn imports app. And this is where we're going to be putting all of our logic. So these are the only real files we need to worry about. Is this app here, and then in bookmarks we have another app just here. But let's start by focusing on the pop-up itself. Now inside here we basically want to have two buttons, but the second button we're only going to allow to be shown once the user's clicked on the first button. Okay, so to do that we're going to have just a simple state that's going to check if we've clicked that first button. So we'll just create a thing up here. We're going to say toggle open. You can see Copilot wants to run away with that there, but we're going to use that. We're just going to import up here. So what we're going to basically do is, because we have, we want to check for this, we're going to extend out our return here. We're going to remove this completely. Then we're going to have our two buttons. So our first button is for actually bookmarking the page. So we'll just call it Bookmark Page. And then our second button will only be shown if toggle open is true. So like this, and then we'll have another button which we'll just call open bookmarks. So if we save that, we can see we have quite a rough version of this so far. So if we were to go into our pop-up, actually we need to refresh first, don't we? If we go into our pop-up, you can see we have Bookmark Page, which if we click on it, nothing will happen. But let's adjust this a little bit now. So we actually add an on-click event just here. And we're going to say set toggle open. Let's just force it to be true. So if we go here now, so that's built, it'll open up. We click onto this, and you can see it's opening. So that's good. That's like the start point of what we want. So we're going to add some styling into here now. So I've just added some basic styling. So we've put a width and a height, and we've just centered everything into the middle there. So because this is Tailwind, it's just going to refresh and fill that in for us. So if we go back over here now, you can see it's already started to fill out. There we have it. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for our two buttons underneath. So here is the styling that we want to add for our bookmark page. Now I've just gone ahead and just pre-written this in, but we've just given it a slight background. We've adjusted the color of the text and some padding horizontally and vertically. So that's the bookmark button just here. So it looks like that. And if we wanted to round off those edges, we could do that quite easily as well. Let's just call it rounded medium. How does that look? There we go. Yeah, that looks all right. And now we want to just make sure that we have a similar style for the open bookmarks button. We're going to give that a slightly different style, but we'll round it as well. So here we go. Let's see what we have here. So we're going to bookmark and open bookmarks. Now what we probably want to add as well is a slight margin between the two. So all we're going to do is into this one, because this one isn't always shown, we'll just put a margin left of 2. And now we'll just go back. That's going to refresh automatically for us. We can see, there we go. Okay, so that's basically what we want in here. But now we need to actually link these up so they can actually perform an action. So the bookmark page is just going to grab this current URL and bookmark it. And open bookmarks is just going to open our bookmark manager. So it's going to open this page just here. So what we're going to do, if I just hide this down a little bit more, hide this. So we're going to create two new functions up here. So one of them will just be Bookmark Page. It's just going to be a normal function over here. And then underneath here, we're going to say Open Bookmarks. And that's going to be the same. So now what we can do is down here where we had this click event, we're just going to remove that and just say Bookmark Page, like that. And then down here, we're going to attach a click event to our Open Bookmarks to say Open Bookmarks. So we called it, yeah, Open Bookmarks. So right now it's not going to do anything, but we're just going to save that for now and just check that everything's running still over here. Yeah, so nothing's going to happen at the minute, but that is what we're looking for here. So let's go back over here and actually hook up the events that we want into these new functions. So let's start with Open Bookmarks. This one's quite straightforward. We're just going to use Chrome tabs create. And then we're going to pass in the URL, which is just Chrome Bookmarks, as you can see over here. So that's what we want to do just there. We'll hit save. And now we want to add the actual ability to bookmark the current page as well. So let's go ahead and add that. Let's just remove this. So here we go, over here. Now what we're going to be doing, it's already suggesting the code here, but that is essentially right. So we want to be grabbing the URL and the information from the current tab. Let's just get rid of that. So we basically want to say Chrome tabs query so we can get the information from the current tab. And then we want to pass that into the bookmark manager. So let's just do an example here without having the tabs query coming in. So we're just going to say URL, and we're going to give it an example and a title. Yep, that'll work as our title. Now we're just going to say, I mean, again, it's got it right. But to show a little bit more of how this works, we're just going to open this up. And you can see here the different information you can actually pass in. So for example, we want to pass in the URL and we want to pass in the title. So if we were to save this now and click this, we should be seeing that google.com is added in into here. So if we go and refresh, and we're going to go and bookmark this page, we can see nothing's happening here because we haven't added that extra event. But if we undo this and just view our bookmarks over here now, you can see we have Google added 3 times. And this is coming straight from the action over here. So if we press it again, actually if we enable it, press it again, come back here, you can see there's even more added now. That's great. So let's just remove these. Let's remove everything for now. Okay, so that is all we need here. But now all we need to do is hook this up to actually get the information from the current page. So you can see here we want to get that tab. It's crazy how accurate this is now, but that's not quite right. We need to actually close this out like this. Okay, so what we're going to do as well is when we complete this, we're then going to set our toggle open to true. So now if we go back and we hit a random page, use this example, we're going to go into here, we're going to bookmark page, and now we can open bookmarks. So we can see that that's linking together. If we go into here, we can see that's now been added. So that is our pop-up essentially ready. So if we go back and just look over the code quickly and see what we've created, we're just using normal imports up here. So down here we have just a div, and inside this div we have 2 buttons. This second one only shows once we've clicked on the first one, and this first button is just going to grab the information from this current active page and the active window. So we have that tab there, and then we're just going to bookmark it. So you can see here that it's just quite straightforward. You know, it's so straightforward, Copilot could just guess it for us. And then after that, we just have our second function here, which is just going to open and create this new tab and take us straight to bookmarks. So that is everything we need just here. So we're going to go ahead and close out this page, and now we're going to start working on our custom bookmark page. So in here we have bookmarks, app, index, and index. So it's exactly the same way we structured our pop-up page, as you can see here. Now, if you want to go more into detail on how we actually created these files, I have a course coming out soon that's going to go into more detail on all of the setup to take us from the very start all the way through. But to keep these videos shorter, I'm going to not include that right now. But if you want to find out when that course is coming out, there's a link in the description to my email list where I'll post updates on when that is actually ready and early offers that you can get as well. But for now, we're going to focus straight on these files just here. So what we basically need in this page is we're going to have two elements. So down the left-hand side, we're going to be listing all of our folders, and you can click into the folders, open them up, and you sort of have a tree of all of our bookmarks. And on the right-hand side, we're going to have a search bar. You can search for anything, and that'll search for all of our bookmarks and just show them in the same way, but just in a list. So let's start to actually create out the way we want to show these elements on the page. Okay, so we're going to start by just having our parent div just here, and then we're going to move this into two sides. So we're going to have our left-hand side. Let's just add a comment here so we can organize this out a bit nicer. So we're going to have our sidebar over here. So that's going to have a div inside. That'll be the sidebar. And then further down, we want to have our main content, but we're not going to call it that. This is our search bar. Yeah. And that's going to have a div like this. Okay, so we're going to save that and just see what we have so far. Now, this won't be anything at all that we want, but it's just sometimes useful. Okay, so this is what we can see right now, and if we just inspect this, okay, the reason this is refreshing is because of the Rollup plugin. It detects that we've made changes, but with page overrides, they want to make sure that if it's not there, it's going to revert back to the original page. So sometimes it can just flicker a little bit. So you just want to make sure that it's stopped reloading, and then if it isn't showing, just load the page again. But we're all good here. So if we just inspect this now, we can see that we have this simple structure that we just went through just there. Okay, so let's go back, and we're going to add some styling just onto this top parent div just here. Okay, there we go. So if you've never used React before, if you've never used Tailwind before, I'd recommend just checking out their documentation. I'll put a link in the description. But it's really straightforward to just make sure that you have just some nice standard styling and spacing out the pages. But all this is doing really is making sure we're using flex. It's turning our child elements inside here to be in a row. We're changing the text color. We're adjusting our content spacing so it's even, so we have sort of space either side of the elements, and the background color, and just adding a bit of padding from the top of the page. So if we load this now, we will be able to see that just here. Yeah, there you go. But one thing we might want to do is make sure this takes up all of the height, but we'll worry about that later. So now what we want to do is in here, we're going to say bookmarks, because this is our bookmarks, and over here, we're going to say search. So we might not necessarily have it just like that, but let's just move these down a little bit. So we're going to give both of these just an H1 just to make it clearer what this is. So these are our titles. This is what we have so far. Let's just remove that. So then in here we want to put in the search box. We're just going to put in an input. Now this input is going to have a placeholder, and it's just going to say search your bookmarks. So if we just have a quick look at that, there we go, there's the search here, but let's just adjust the styling of our input box just to make it look a little bit more like a search box basically. Okay, so all we've added here is we've adjusted the width, changed the text color, added a bit of padding, made it round, and just make the font a little bit bigger and bolder. So if we load the page again now, we can see it's a little bit better. It's not perfect, but for this example, it's fine. So what we want to do now is hook up our search to actually try and search through our bookmarks. So if we just toggle this off for a minute, we can see that right now we have our one bookmark just here. And we want our search to basically function exactly the same as the search up here. So if I was to type it in Cricket, you can see it's appearing. But if I type in a keyword that I don't have, it's not going to show. So if we go over to here again, we're just going to put an on change, and all this is going to do for now is just log what we're trying to search for. So if we enable this back, go over here, open the console, and just type in keyword, you can see it's going to run on each time we change, which for this is fine because we're not hitting like an external API or anything, we're calling Chrome directly, so we can handle that, we don't need to like debounce this or anything. So we're going to go ahead now and just change this to a function. In fact, what we'll do up here is just create a search function called search bookmarks, if I can spell. Okay, I should probably just turn Copilot off for now. But okay, so there's our search bookmarks, and what we're going to do is just pass in our keyword. So we know that this is the keyword that we want to search. So we're just going to change this to be search bookmarks, and then we're going to pass in our keyword. So in here, I'll say keyword is a string, and that's going to handle everything just there. So we'll save that. Okay, so now that we have this function here, let's take a quick look at the Chrome developer docs and see how we can actually link this together. So this is the documentation on bookmarks. I'll put a link to this in the description as well, so you can take a closer look. But the main thing we're using here is search. Now, basically the way you can break this down is that we're going to be using search and get tree, and these will return the same type of object back to us. So we can reuse the same logic for displaying the search results and for actual tree of bookmarks on the left. But the main thing we'll look at here is you can see that we just need to use Chrome bookmark search and just pass in our query string that we already have. So this should be quite a quick function to write. So let's jump back into our code editor now and actually take a look at this. So what we need to do as well is actually have somewhere in our state that we can have our search results. So we're just going to go up here and type in search results, and we're going to import the state just here, and then up here we're going to say Chrome bookmarks search. Then we need to pass in our keyword here and our search result. We need to make sure that we type this too. This is the type that we're going to have up here, and we're just going to pass that in to our state. If you're only using JavaScript, you don't need to worry about the types, but this is just a TypeScript example here, so you can have all of that included. Now, as we can see now, we have our search and links up to our search results. So let's just test this out. So we're going to add a console log down here. Let's not put it here, let's just put it just underneath, and we'll use results. So we're going to save that now and test this out. So if we go over here, we're going to refresh. Let's load, and we're just going to do a quick search. BBC, because that's what we know that we have at least one bookmark for, and we can see this is the results that we get. So it has the timestamp of when it was added. We have an ID, we have an index, we have a parent ID, which we'll get onto in a moment when we get onto the tree down the side. We have our page title, and we have a URL. So that is great. So that shows that our search is linking up. So if we changed, the keyword around a little, you can see it's going to be different each time. So now that we have this, we can start to hook it up to our actual display. So we're going to go back into our code editor now, and we're going to add a area underneath this to actually start displaying this. So we're going to add a div, actually maybe not, let's just add an unordered list, and then inside here we're going to map out our results. But what we're going to do for now is we're just going to stringify these just so we can see where they're going to go, and we're going to actually have a separate function for displaying both of our bookmarks and our search results. We can reuse that logic there. So for now we'll just say JSON stringify search results. We probably should have put that as a div, but that's fine for now. So if we go over here and then search, we can see we have this in here. Okay, so that's good. Now what we're going to do is just add a little bit of styling to these two sections, just to separate this out a little bit, and maybe define our H1s a little bit more, just to make that a little bit clearer. So we're going to add this styling here for both of our headers. So we're just setting the text, making it bold, and adding some margin to the bottom here. And then for both of our elements, we're going to just set them a bit of a width. And for now, and to keep this simple, we'll just make it expand for the whole height of the page. So now if we go on to here, we can see that it just fills out the page a little bit more and just looks a little bit nicer. So if we search again in here, we can see that this is the data we want to use. And then over here, we're going to actually now go and grab this, grab our bookmarks. So we're going to go back into here and we're going to create a use effect to actually load our bookmarks. So this is basically going to make sure we only run this once. We want to make sure that we can grab the information from the bookmarks. But what we need to do as well is think about this a little bit, because one thing we need to consider is that if the user wants to create a new folder or add a new bookmark within this page, we need a way to refresh this. So we're actually going to create a function down here to fetch our bookmarks, and we're going to call that from within this function. So there we go. And then in here, we're going to actually make sure that we're getting our bookmarks tree. Now again, Copilot has got this right, but we're going to make a slight change here. We're going to say bookmark tree and then set bookmark tree. Again, we want this with exactly the same type, so that's actually got that right. And then in here, we want to say Chrome bookmarks get tree. You can see again, it's got it right. This actually is a good example of showing how helpful GitHub Copilot can be when you're working within a specific set of APIs. So for this example, the Chrome APIs, which makes that process a lot easier. So here we now have our bookmark tree. So we're going to go down here, and exactly the same way that we used the stringify from the search results, we're going to do that over here, just so we can see what we're working with. So if we paste in our bookmark tree for that and load, here we go, we can see exactly what we have here. Again, that's reloading. So we can see now that we have these two sides to the page. Now what we need to do is create a way that we can loop through this tree and display it in a way that we can click to open up the folders, and need to make sure that this will work for search results and our bookmarks. So if we just take a look at what we have here, so we have the same format of data as we can see. If we just put this in, we can see that that's an array, and then we have objects. So let's go back into here, and we're going to change this now to render bookmarks, and we'll use that down here as well. Render bookmarks, and now we need to actually create this function. So we're going to say render bookmarks. This is going to take in a bookmark tree. So again, that is fine, and then we're going to output our logic. So what we need to do in here is loop through all of the different parts of the array, check if there needs to be like an indentation. So do we have like a folder or like a child node in here that we need to go through? And then we need to remember as well that each one of those can have their own node inside there as well. So let's think about this a little bit then. So what we need to do is also add another property on here. We're going to call this level. So this is essentially what level are we through the array, and then we're going to return this directly. So we're just going to say, we'll probably break this out. So if element, so let's just call this, let's call this tree, just to keep that shorter. So if tree, let me just think. Okay, no, we will map these out first. We'll return tree map, and then in here, we're not going to call this node. We're going to call it tree item. Okay, so in here we're going to check if our tree item is like a folder, or if it's an actual link that we need to display. So again, Copilot is guessing the right direction here, but we're going to simplify this down. So if our tree item has a property here for children, we're going to display this here. Otherwise, we're going to show this as a link. So we're just going to add something in here. So we'll say return, let's just say div tree item title, like that. And then up here, we're going to still render, and we'll say div folder, just put in brackets the folder name. Now this isn't what we're going to use, but it's a useful way just to see what we have in this data here. Now, one thing I'd recommend when we're doing this is making sure that making sure that we're testing this regularly, because you don't want to keep, building without actually checking what we have, especially when working with APIs we might not have used before. Okay, so here we have our folder. So we haven't got a folder name, but if we look at this, we can see that we do have these areas here. So we should have a bookmarks bar, other bookmarks, and then our folder should be inside there. So if we look here, we can see we just have folder. So something isn't quite right just there. So if we have a look, now what this shows is the hierarchy. So we must have a top level array, which doesn't have a title, and then inside there we have our bookmarks bar, and then inside this bookmarks bar we have our actual elements. This is why we're not seeing anything just yet. So what we essentially need to do is map this out so that we call this function itself. So down here where we have this, we want to actually make this larger, go on to multiple lines. So just to test this out, we're going to just put in an empty fragment there. And then down here, we're going to call our own element here. So we're going to remove that. So what you can see we're basically doing here, so let me be a little bit messy, but we're calling the render bookmarks here with the sort of children elements of this, and we're just increasing the level that we're at. So that won't do anything just yet, the level, but we should now see that this is going to appear in here. So you can see we have our titles, that we can tell if it's a folder or if it's an actual link, which is good. So we're differentiating between these two now. So if we refresh, you can see that's coming in, but what we can also see is we have this issue here with our keys. So that is going to be related to this area just here. So what we should probably do is wrap this in that same div to make sure that we're not outside of there. No? Okay, well we won't worry about that for now. We'll come back to that later. So what we're going to do now is just tidy this up a little bit with some styling and make some more adjustments here. So let's take away our console logs, because we know what we have now. So this down here is the actual link, and this up here is a folder. So that's great. We're going to change these slightly now, because down here we used an unordered list. So we don't really want to be returning a div. So we're going to change these to a list item up here. We can get rid of this empty fragment. And okay, so things are starting to look a little bit better now. What we would actually need to do in here is create another unordered list, so we can show that's actually going to filter down. Okay, there we go. So what we need to do is only show an element if we actually have a title. So down here where we have this folder, we're going to remove that completely, unless we actually have a title to display. So let's just think about this. So we're going to change this to a span, and we're going to pass in the tree item title. So if we go back in now, we can see, here we go, we have bookmarks bar, other bookmarks, and then our actual item. So we're going to change this just to add a little folder icon. Let's try and find one here, something like this. Add a bit of space, so we can see it's like a closed folder. There we go. We have one up here though, that top level that we don't want. So we're just going to add something up here and say, like, if tree item title doesn't exist, we'll just return like that. But actually we still need to render the bookmarks inside there because that top level one, yeah, is what has everything. So what I'll probably just do is add a check for that just here. So we'll say if tree item title exists, then we'll do this. Otherwise, we'll just render the bookmarks inside there. So that should fix that issue. So if we reload here, yeah, here we go. So we don't have that top one, but we are getting to the level underneath that, and so we can actually display. So next, let's add some styling around these. So I have some classes I've prepared earlier, but I'll put these in and then explain through what they're actually doing. So we'll add one to the span and add one into this element just here. What you'll notice that we've done is that we have set this to be hidden. So this is going to mean each layer that we go down, we're going to be making the elements hidden until we actually click onto it. So you can see here they're hidden, but what we're going to do is make sure that we're only passing in the first node. So you can see here we have this, but we're going to change that to be the first item, and we're going to grab the child element from there. So the reason for that just removes that issue we had where we had that top row. So if we just go back here, we can now remove this logic here because we don't need to check for that. Although we could, but no, we're not going to worry about that now. So let's remove that and save. And whilst we're at it, we'll just fix this issue just here. So we are going to essentially add a fallback. So we'll just say bookmark tree, and then we'll add a check here. If bookmark tree exists, we'll pass in bookmark tree, otherwise we'll fall back to an empty array. We could put that directly in here, but that just looks a little bit clearer. We're going to remove our search results as well. And what we're going to do, if we go up here, is refresh this, and let's do another search. Okay, so we can see now that this is loading our results, and it has the same format here as on the left. So it's slowly starting to take place, but now let's add a click event here. So when we actually click onto these folders, we can open up the like the direct element underneath. So not all of them, but just the one that's directly underneath. So to do that, we're going to add a click event just here. And that's going to call this function. So let's just test it. So just put alert clicked. So if we go over here, click, okay, we can see we're in the right place. So that's good. We're going to go back over here, remove this. And this is where we're going to type in our logic to actually show this element. So to do this, we're going to use the ID that we've given to our UL down here. So we'll say child UL equals this. That's good. Although, yeah, that's using an ID, that's using the key, that's fine. So we'll have that element just here. And then what we want to do is essentially check that it exists, because it might not be on the page. So we'll say if child UL. So that's about right, yeah, child UL. So in here we know that we have that element. So what we're going to do is check if it's actually appearing or not, and grab the target element. So to do that, actually, we need to pass in something for this target. Let's just call it target element equals target as HTML element. Again, if you're not using TypeScript, don't worry about that, but that's fine. So what we should probably do is also check that this exists, which it will though, because we've already typed that, so we'll just take that out. So in here, we basically want to toggle whether this element down here can be seen. So we're going to do two things here. We're going to toggle the hidden element, or toggle the hidden class, and add a class of flex as well, so we can actually display it. So again, it's quite straightforward. So we'll just say child UL dot style, or dot class list, sorry, toggle hidden, and then we're going to do exactly the same thing again, class list toggle flex. Okay, so what we have here is we should be toggling between these two classes. So if we go back here now, reload and click, we can see this bookmarks bar doesn't have any child elements, so that's fine. But this one does, so that's like showing and hiding when we click onto it, which is great. One thing I'd say for this though is it's not very clear, especially for this one, if anything's actually happening. So let's just make a small change to adjust this emoji that we're using to show that it's actually opening the folder. So to do that, we're going to go up here again. We're going to use our target element, that's what this is for, so we can grab this whole span here, and we're just going to change the inner text. So what we're going to do is check to see if our element is visible. So to do that, we're just going to say if child UL class list contains flex. So this basically means, is it visible? If it is, we're just going to update our target element in a text. So Copilot was wrong this time. And then to keep things simple, we're just going to copy this. So this is when it's open. So we're going to use an open folder, and let's just change this here like this. And then we're just going to set an else just to change it back. So this one will be a closed folder, like that. There's a few different ways we could do this, but again, let's just keep things simple, and we're going to do it like that. So when we click it, it's going to check, or it's going to first toggle the classes, and then just after that, we're going to check if it's currently visible, is it on the page, do we have that flex class, and then depending on that, we're going to adjust the title. So we could have put this in like a separate span and then grab the span and only change this emoji, but this is fine. So let's load this again. We're going to click onto this. You can see now we've got a bit more of the visual effect of what is actually happening here, which I think looks a bit better. So that's fine. What we're going to do actually first, just to make this a bit easier to see, we're going to disable this now and just bookmark a few more pages. So let's remember that we have, you can bookmark a number of ways, so we don't really need that part there. So we're going to bookmark this page, let's bookmark this page as well, but let's change it. Let's choose another folder, create a new folder, let's just call it Indent folder, and we're going to save it there. So if we look at our bookmarks now, we can see that we have this folder here, which has this. So we're starting to see where everything is. You can click into it. So that's fine. So if we enable our custom bookmarks now and refresh, let's see if it actually works the same. So we've got our bookmarks bar. Again, there's nothing in this folder. We have other bookmarks, which looks good. We can see our two links just here. So in a minute, we'll go in and actually adjust those. And then we have another folder with our bookmarks here. But the reason I've called this Indent folder is we want to get some sort of hierarchy of what level we are in. So we can do this in quite a simple way, just by just pushing like an indent each layer we go into. So let's take a look at that now. So to do this, we're going to add There's like a simple function in here that's just going to calculate some padding to add to our element. So we'll just call it calculate indent. And this will take in, you can call it depth, let's just call it level. That'll be a number. And then we're just going to return our level times like the amount of pixels we want to indent by for each level. So let's say, I think 20 is probably too much, let's just say 15. And then all we're going to do down here is add this to our styling. So what we need to do is add this to both the link and the span up here. So because, not the span actually, the list element. Well, it depends on the way you wanted to do it. If you wanted to show it on just the title, you could, or you could do it across the whole element. Let's just put it on the span. So we're going to add the style, and then down here we'll just say padding left. You could do margin if you wanted. Then we're going to calculate the indent and put it on level, and then we'll just copy this and then put that down here. So if we save, let's wait for that to load. We go over here, so let's see how this looks. So you can see that's pushed in, and that's pushed in even more. So it's quite simple, but it gives a bit more of an impression of where these bookmarks are. But if we look over here and start searching, you can see that all these have the same effect over here. Okay, so we have the basic flow now of what we need. We're not going to go into too much more detail. Maybe we'll just add a little bit more styling here. A way to create a new folder, and let's grab the favicon of these. Let's do that next, actually. How can we display the favicon for this element just here? So let's start by just adding an image element here. And we're going to add some classes. So I'll grab some just here, just to save some time. Okay, and then we're just going to pass in a source. So what we need to do here is we can use the Google method of grabbing favicons. So you can actually see it just here. So all we need to do is just put that in. We can see we have our tree item URL. And whilst we're doing this, we're going to go ahead and change this now to a link. So you can use the pass the user to the right place. So we know that we want to wrap this entire element just here. Let's go back. We want to make sure that we're opening into a new tab, so we're going to use blank as the target. And then we'll set a class name in a minute. But first we just need to pass in URL, so that's tree item URL. So if we close that out like this and save, okay, so there we go. So let's just test to see that our favicons are appearing, and are they the correct ones. So if we go over here, we can see, yeah, we've got BBC Cricket, BBC Sport, and the Chrome developers. So let's just add some styling on this element here, just to make sure they appear alongside each other correctly. Okay, so we're going to add this styling just here. Save it. Come back here. Okay. So it looks a little bit better. We can see we have these here. Not bad. Let's move our style into here. Yeah. Let's just reload. Okay, so what do we have? So you can see now we have a nice little hover on here. We have the favicons appearing. We can see exactly where this is. Maybe let's add a bit of margin to the top of this. So if we just go down to our search results over here, we'll add a class name of just like margin top, just 2. Let's give a bit of spacing there. There we go, just a little bit of spacing. So if we click on one of these now, we can see it's going to open in a new tab, which is great. And there we can link through all of these folders. That works exactly the same. So we're almost done. I just think we'll finish this off just by adding an option to create a new folder inside these. So at the end of every folder, we can have an option to create a new folder. So let's just first add a place for this to appear. So what we want is for it to be at the end of this list here. So this is where we know that it's a folder up here. So we're going to go into here, and let's just first start by checking that this is the right place. So let's just say new folder, and we'll add an on-click event as well, just to see what we have. Okay, so if we go back and refresh, open this, there we go, with our new folder. And then down here, we can see it's at the bottom here, and then inside this one, we have an option just there. Okay, so what we need to do is, if we want this to appear in this correct place, I don't know if you remember earlier we mentioned the parent ID, so that's what we can use to make sure that when we click create in each of these different locations, we're grabbing the correct parent ID. So again, similar to before as well, I have some styles already made, so we're going to use that, and then we're going to expand this on-click event just here. So first thing we want to do is find out what name the user wants to give to their folder. So we're not going to add anything fancy for this. We're just going to set a like a thing like folder name and use prompt. So what do you want to name the folder? Like really simple, and then just wait for that to be ready. So that will use the native prompt, and then all we're going to do is say Chrome bookmarks create. So similar to before, but in here we need to make sure that we're setting this without a URL. So if we don't pass in a URL, it sort of knows that it's a folder, and this is where we can pass in the parent ID. So the parent ID will be the node ID of this particular element, so that will then be used as a parent in the tree. That's why it's called a tree, it's just each one links together. So then all we're going to do is pass in the title of our folder name. And then, as we mentioned earlier, we need a way to refresh our bookmarks. So if we then call after this, we're going to call fetch bookmarks like that. So hopefully, let's just add a little emoji here, like a little plus icon. Yeah, something like that. So let's save, have a little look, wait for that to finish loading. Okay, so we're going to go back into here now, so we can see we have our bookmarks bar. Oh, loading again. Bookmarks bar, so if we go new folder, let's call it more bookmarks, if I can spell. Click OK, there we go, we can see it's loaded in there. It's going to call it each time. So if we just turn this off for a moment and look at the default option, you can see how that looks in here. And then enable it again, come back to as. I think this looks nicer. It's fresher. It doesn't have the same functionality though. So some of the things you could use to sort of take this to the next level could be a way to sort of drag to reorder these, or maybe not over there. Over here, drag to move things into different folders. Maybe the ability to edit things in here, so change the title, add a new bookmark directly from this menu. But hopefully this gives you an idea of how you can use the Chrome bookmarks, here we go, let's test this out, the Chrome bookmarks methods within Chrome and page overrides to actually make an extension like this that can hopefully enhance the user's experience. Now, just to mention again, this probably wouldn't be an ideal extension to launch, particularly around this pop-up, because this action we're adding here is just there. So it's not that useful. But if you can find a novel way to add something onto that, then it's definitely worth adding, publishing onto the store. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, because I did rush through quite a few things here. But you'll find links in the description to the docs that we mentioned here, to Tailwind, to my email list, so you can sign up for more information about my course I mentioned earlier, and also the starter point of this video, so the bookmark override starter, and I'll share a link to the final sort of build extension as well if you want to just take a look over the finished code. So thanks for watching. Again, if there are any questions, feel free to let me know.